on BBC Oxford. Now have a little listen to this. It's a track called Oxfordshire's Sky off a new album called Oxford and Beyond, a cycle of music and songs by my next guest, Beatrix Forbes. Beatrix was born in Holland but has lived in Oxford for over half her life, arriving here when she was 30. As a teenager, she trained as a classical pianist before becoming an independent filmmaker and award-winning photographer. But of late, all those creativities have been replaced by music, composing and songwriting in a host of genres. As a recording artist, Beatrix has now completed a new album that we're hearing from right now, inspired by the sights and sounds of Oxfordshire, her adoptive home county, and she's here to tell us a little bit more of its story right now. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So as a musician, your story started quite early as a classically trained pianist. Tell us a little bit about those early influences.
It was my mother's idea because I showed some interest in music from an early age, like many other kids do. And she thought that piano lessons would do me good. I didn't really enjoy it because it was very rigid in those days. You didn't have any input yourself. You had just to read and learn about notation and everything. And a few years into the lessons, I found it easier and more exciting to play things that I heard on the radio. And for the rest of those 10 years, I did my practicing, but 70% of that I played at home, pieces from the radio or from the records I had by memory. And then when I came to England, I didn't have a piano at all anymore for 30-odd years. And when I retired, I got back to the piano.
And it was 8 years ago that you really started to explore the sort of world of music for you again. What was it that sort of inspired you to start writing your own music rather than playing pieces that you were familiar with that you particularly enjoyed listening to?
I wonder what the process was that went on in my brain. I think the 30 years of rest has been very useful. And when I retired for my job, I thought I'll go back to the piano. It gives me a renewed interest. And but I found that the fingers didn't want to go so quickly anymore. So I had a year of refresher lessons of a lady near where I live. And that was very useful. And I bought myself a lovely digital piano. And that had the possibilities of other instruments mixing with the piano. And if I pushed in the button of strings, then it was just like an orchestra playing. And that took me away. And from that moment on, the compositions came up in my mind.
And you started using the sights and sounds of Oxford as the inspiration to your pieces, as we were just hearing a piece called Oxfordshire's Sky.
That took a few years. It took about 4 years ago. I just had the light going on in my mind. I had seen so many calendars, postcards, books with stories about Oxford, all visual things. And then I suddenly thought there should be something audible as well. I know Oxford has created, or rather composers who live in Oxford have created music about the city, but it's not quite the same as that. And I still like to meet a composer who's compiled a very similar disc to this, as it is rather different.
Looking at the titles of some of the tracks, you've got St Giles' Feast, Full Moon over South Park, The River Windrush, the Woodstock Winter. You've obviously enjoyed exploring this county over the years that you've called it home. Which areas in particular are favourites of yours?
Now, I love Oxford, the centre of Oxford, behind Mary and the Virgin University Church. That's my favourite area in Oxford, because you're sort of cut off from the world there, and all these majestic buildings. It's wonderful. And also the Cotswolds are beautiful, and Blenheim Palace and Woodstock. I mean, there's so much to see in this county. You can spend your whole lifetime just looking around in Oxfordshire.
Well, I want to talk about the creative process of actually taking these places as inspiration, turning them into a piece of music, and then the actual recording process of putting the CD together, because I know there's a great story attached to that. So we'll be back with Beatrix Forbes in just a moment or two. Also want to talk to you about a piece of music that you were asked to write on a Oxford twinning trip at one point. So plenty more to discover from Beatrix's story, which we'll pick up with in just a moment. After this, from Johnny Bristol, Hang On In There Baby. Coming up for here it's half the talk to Beatrix Forbes, who's been telling us a little bit about her brand new CD, Oxford and Beyond. And we heard a track from it earlier on, which was called Oxford to Sky. Now a track, The Pink Almond Tree, which has a very interesting story behind it, Beatrix, because this was a collaboration project for you.
Yes, I have a friend who is a poet, and as a challenge, she gave me one of her poems to set to music, which went wonderfully well, and she was very pleased. And it was the first piece we compiled for this CD.
Was it the first time you had worked in collaboration with somebody?
Definitely, definitely.
What challenges did that offer you?
Unknown challenges. I found it very exciting. And when it only took me about a quarter of an hour to do. And that was the exciting thing. So I thought, if I can do this one, I can do more. So that's how it started, really.
So writing about various landmarks and places in Oxford that have inspired you, how did you then go about taking these compositions to the next step, to actually producing a CD?
It usually takes a night or two. Sometimes I wake up very early in the morning, 4 o'clock, and then I have to write something down, otherwise I forget by the time I have dropped off and woken up again. So just to memorize what the idea was that went through my mind. I'm sure that other artists find that the same, that they're the brightest in the morning just after being asleep. And then again, the beauty of Oxford. And also, there are, as I said, calendars, postcards, nothing audible, really, that has to do with Oxford as such.
And you've been working with a producer who's helped you bring this CD to completion.
Yeah, that was the real turning point for me, really. One night my car filled up with rainwater, and there was no window left open or anything left open that could have caused it. So I took it to the garage, a local garage. I was hanging about in the office for a while they sorted it out. And there was this advert on the notice board of a recording studio offering help for composers, singers, etc. So I rang the number when I got home, and I was invited to come to the studio and bring a CD with me. So Gin, that's his name, Gin Music from the Lilac Lounge, listened for an hour and a half and gave his verdict which way we should go. And we've been steering that direction all the way.
Now, having been a filmmaker and a photographer before, was this a very different creative experience for you, or were you able to draw from those other mediums?
Actually, with the CD comes a little booklet with some photographs of mine that relate to the pieces of music. So I thought it might be a visual and an audio part together, which might be interesting for people.
And how about the promoting of the CD? How have you gone about doing that? Because now you've got the actual copies, and it's wonderful to feel it in your hand and to have completed that project. I suppose now it's about getting the music out there for people to hear.
Jin has created a lovely website for me. And I can give you the website address, and you can find all the information on there. I've also got in touch with several shops in town, tourist shops, and also museum shops. And but it all takes time, of course. Many people have to listen to the demo CD first, give their verdict, talk it over with others, and then decide yes or no, we'll sell it. But I'm in that process, so I don't know what will come out of it. But there's one shop in Haddington, a chocolate shop of all places, with the name of Coco Noir on London Road 77 in Haddington, and they're the first ones to stock them as actual CDs.
That must have been quite a special feeling for you to go in and see your CDs there.
I feel I've got at least one foot in the door there, yes.
Do you have more musical projects in the pipeline, either as far as a CD's concerned or other sort of elements that you're pursuing at the moment? Because it seems like this is beginning to really take off for you.
Yes, that's what I hope. The next project with Jin in the studio is a a piano CD with cello here and there of my own compositions. That should be about an hour long as well. And after that, as I am the resident composer of the 13th Theatre Company, I've been asked to make the music and the songs for a new musical of Oxford. The 13th Theatre Company is the first social enterprise theatre company, and that means that it gives so many of percentage to charity of what they take in money. And they also got a website, but you can find that through my website.
Yeah, and your website is beatrix-forbes.co.uk, and we'll hold on to that and pass it on to anybody that might want to have a look for themselves. Is your future writing, is it going to still be, do you think, inspired by Oxford and Oxfordshire? Is there a wealth of opportunity still there for you to sort of explore, do you think?
I haven't given it a thought yet, because there's some other project coming up after what I've just mentioned, and we'll see how we go from there. But I'm sure that the countryside and the city will still give me inspiration forever.
Well, the album's called Oxford and Beyond, a cycle of music and songs. There are 15 tracks, all inspired by the sights and sounds of Oxford, and you can hear them for yourself. If you'd like to get a copy of the CD, have a look at Beatrix's website, which is www.beatrix-forbes.co.uk. Absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for coming in.
Lovely speaking to you.
Beatrix
Thank you.
Forbes here on BBC Oxford. Now, this is new music too, from Robbie Williams and Gary Barlow this time. It's Shame.